Hi everyone, it's Michelle Lightworker here, and I'm extraordinarily excited because it's the premiere of Enlightened Conversations, and it's been obviously a long time in the making for me. Spirit's obviously groomed me to keep turning up and to keep tuning in to my guidance and to keep that constant. And I think that that's why I'm able to now sort of take the platform and to be able to hold the space for an enlightened conversation. So I'm really excited. I have a beautiful special guest with me for our first enlightened conversation, which I'm sure will be one of many. So I'm going to just give you all a nice little introduction of our special guest, Amy Young. So Amy is one of the co-founders of the Anxiety Diaries, and she's also the author behind many of our articles that we've had in Lightworker Advocate Magazine over the past few months. She's been consistent. She's been popping through her reflections on anxiety and how they are resolved with the principles of the Everyday Lightworker Principles. So it's been really cool to receive those consistently. After years of experiencing anxiety and depression, Amy was able to find solace in the Everyday Lightworker Principles, and she has since been able to apply them to her anxiety journey, which is really cool. And currently she's working on her debut book, and it teaches people how to activate their anxiety, and that's an interesting word, and we will talk about what that actually means, and to learn to see and use the anxiety from a really loving perspective. And she's now on a mission to share her experiences and knowledge with others. So we're really lucky to have Amy join us. Hello, Amy. Thank you so much for joining us on our first broadcast. It's very exciting.
Thank you. Hello, thank you. It's really an honour and very exciting to be here.
Yeah, I guess when I was reflecting this morning on what we could share, because I'm sure there's so much that we could share with everyone, the thing that really came through strongly for me was not a lot of people know about my anxiety journey, and I feel like that's really well worth showing, because I've come such a long way from where I was. I'm now 46, so when I was in my 20s, and so, or actually not even in my 20s, I had my anxiety. So yeah, so I'm really looking forward to sharing that as well today, and really kind of, I guess, setting the stage for people to understand that anxiety is something that can catapult us into enlightenment. That's how I like to see it, actually, and you're really passionate about it, and I'm really proud of you for flying the anxiety banner. So well done.
Thank you. Yes, yeah, it is a bit like flying the anxiety banner. It used to actually bring me a lot of solace. Like, I'm really glad that you said you want to share a part of your journey, because one thing I've really learned about anxiety is that we're actually not alone. The statistics are something like 1 in 5 Australians experience anxiety at some time in their life, and that's a huge amount of people. So that was actually a big help for me, in the fact that I knew that at any one moment, at any one time, I'm not the only one feeling anxiety at that moment. And that actually put things back into perspective. And I used to think, oh my gosh, I'm really anxious right now, but millions of other people are feeling these similar feelings at the very same time. So that was a huge help for me. And it was a bit like talking principles, unity. It really is putting that unity into place and realizing that although we feel alone, we feel very disconnected, we're actually not. And even though my anxiety might be different about something you might be experiencing or someone else has experienced, but those feelings are still there. So yeah, absolute huge help for me. That really used to hit home for me, and it used to get me out of that constant merry-go-round thought process, and thinking, oh wow, that's okay. It's okay to be anxious. And now to think that so many people, millions of people, are experiencing it, it's okay to share that journey with others, because there's one thing that I might have done or I've learned that I can share with someone else, and it might just give them that peace of mind. So yeah, it's really exciting.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because often we will connotate anxiety with something wrong or we're not okay. Now, it's an interesting, I believe, a very interesting and enlightened perspective to see anxiety in a very different way and to help people to feel empowered through their anxiety, because I certainly have learned a lot about anxiety and how it serves us. And I certainly haven't had anxiety for many years now, which is like, used to be bed buddies. I mean, come on, but where are you? Oh my God. No, but like just a little snapshot. For me, I really understand what you're saying, because I totally felt alone when I had my anxiety. Like I was, I remember it was after I was working in the irony of it, I was working in an office that was all about security. So isn't that funny?
Yeah.
The most secure building in the whole of the suburb, but you feel anxious, kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But I was, really, I didn't know. It was like I had no idea why I was feeling anxious. So that made me feel more anxious. And I just remember having panic attacks and anxiety sitting at my desk and running, or not running, because if I ran, everybody would know, right? So walking to the toilet but on the way, making sure I grabbed a muffin or something from the food trolley and then stuffing it in my face. So my eating disorder and my overeating went hand in hand with my anxiety, because it's like when I was anxious, I wanted to eat and to numb my feelings. And so for me, that was, I would have to say, for me, my eating disorder probably didn't get me into recovery for my eating disorder. My anxiety got me into recovery from my eating disorder. My eating disorder I could hide. My panic and my absolute wanting to curl up in a little ball and cry and run away and hide and never see anyone again, that was the thing that really catapulted me into doing something different. And that's actually when I my story is, that's the last time I remember doing something like that before I entered recovery and into Overeaters Anonymous. And that was 26 years ago. So yeah, that's a bit of my story of anxiety. My goodness. Long time
That's
ago.
amazing. That is. And you're right, like it comes to a point where people who are experiencing anxiety, they're really good at hiding it. And I was pretty good at hiding it. A lot of people didn't know what was really happening under the, the facade or the mask of the smile sort of thing, that I would hide behind. And like you, I would just sort of slowly, walk out of the office or walk out of any situation that I was in and hide or eat or do whatever. I was the same. I thought, if I just had a drink of water, if I just got some fresh air or something like that. So hiding was a pretty good skill at the time, but it was getting to the point where it was starting to become so overwhelming that hiding was becoming really harder and harder to do, especially when you started feeling really exhausted. Because as you know, when you're anxious, you're using up so much energy that you're just exhausted all the time, and people could see you and it'd start getting really run down, start feeling really sick. And I got to the point where I started to lose, my hair and my weight, and people were starting to recognize that something's really wrong. And there's only so many people you can smile to before they go, no, what's really happening? And as you know, like it is hard to talk about anxiety when you don't know if anyone else has it or how they relate to how you feel. I remember feeling really embarrassed about it when I was diagnosed with it. I really struggled to tell people because, a lot of doctors would say it's just in your head, and you're like, well, it's not like that. But I completely know what you mean in all those situations. So that's when I sort of looked for something different, and that's when I came across yourself, Michelle. Actually, we met. I came in to see a reading with you, and you sort of helped spell it out for me in the cards and things. And that's when I learned about the Lightworker practitioner training and the principles. So I thought, I'm just going to take a chance. This feels good. I'm just going to look at my life in a different way. That's the only thing I need to do. It's the only thing I think I can turn to at this moment. And I haven't looked back since then. So yeah,
it's been an amazing journey, and that was a while ago now. But then a year ago, when I started Lightworker Advocate Magazine, and then you started writing these articles about anxiety, and then like marrying them up with a principle, I found that extraordinarily helpful to really dissect anxiety, and to really help us to understand different components about how high vibrational frequencies are the remedy, and also them. It's kind of like, well, yeah, even when I heard you sharing about like how anxiety is like a wake-up call when you're not addressing your self-care or your spiritual care, or some other self-care, and I felt that was really helpful, because instead of automatically being alarmed by your anxiety, you're going, oh, okay, what do I need to focus on? Like, you're actually taking your power back right then and there, and actually benefiting from your anxiety rather than it draining you, because I kind of feel like you're right. I feel like it drains our etheric body, because when we're anxious, I feel our emotional body is spiraling out of our physical body. And so when our emotional body is out of our physical body, what usually happens then is our higher self can't really grab a hold of our body properly. It's like, in the whirlwind, if you like, the cloud, the cyclone, sorry, not the cloud, but the cyclone. And the higher self's really being challenged to actually come on in and really ground us. So I don't know about you, but physicality wise, I would get like really around the chest. It would be like stirring and whirring out.
Yeah.
And, when I did my Steiner training, they spoke of the astral body spiraling out when you're having anxiety. And that made so much sense to me. I really got that. I could feel it. I could literally feel it. And, if you're always wanting to be in control, and then you're not in control, and not being in control creates your anxiety, it's kind of a paradox that the fact that your astral body is spiraling out of your body would lead to, of course, feed your fear of being in control. So I like the way you said it was a catalyst, or it was a trigger for me to realize, or a wake-up call for me to realize, well, where's my self-care? What do I need to do with my self-care right now? Because automatically, not trying to be in control, but automatically you're taking your power back.
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. Hit it right on the head. Exactly. What I learned along the journey with the principles, it's funny, when I first started learning about them, I was only sort of applying them in the spiritual tense kind of thing, and in that intuition sort of based. And it wasn't until I started writing the articles and, like I said, dissecting them and looking at it from an anxiety view, I'm like, oh my gosh, these principles actually are steps to so many things, like not just spiritual enlightenment, but any journey that you're going through, whether it's an addiction or anxiety or something like that. And when I pulled them apart, I realized how powerful they really were. So, so that I came up with 3 things, and I think people have heard this before. So basically the mind, the body, and the soul. And I found that when one of those things was sort of out of whack, or all 2 or 3 of them, is when anxiety would come up for me. So, and I would picture myself, anxiety as myself, and it was a little person who looked like me. And basically, when I started feeling anxious, I would see this little person jumping up and down, waving a little red flag, basically saying, hey, something's not right here. You're kind of getting out of whack. You need to do something. And like you said, so I would sit back and think, all right, so what is it that I actually need right now? Or what is it that I'm not following? Or, like the mind, am I thinking fear-based thoughts? Am I letting something get to me that someone might have said to me? When the body side of it, am I exercising? Am I eating healthy? Am I overwhelmed with my work? Do I need to rest? And when it came to the soul side of it, it's like, well, am I going against my beliefs? Am I, how am I feeling? What's really happening here? So I found that when any one of those things was out of control, that's when anxiety would jump up for me. And I got to the point where I'm like, thanks, anxiety, thank you. Thanks to that little anxious person part of me who's waving that flag. You've saved me a lot of heartache, because like you said, I can take back that power right now, that part of control, that part of me that loves to be in control, and put into place those disciplinary things that I had put aside for occasions like this. And it might be resting or eating a healthy diet, or getting outside, or doing a bit of meditation, or just soft breathing exercises and that sort of thing. Yeah.
Oh, and I think too, like it's wonderful because it brings forward our curiosity about why now? Like, why this moment? I mean, if we're talking mindfulness, when we're talking present moment, it's like, okay, well, what specifically right now have I missed? Because there's something obviously unconsciously running that's trying to get my attention desperately here.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives us an opportunity to stop, pause, reflect. If we don't know, at least we're curious, and we can actually start to begin and a willingness, like get that principle of willingness on board, to actually start to have a little bit more of a respect for perhaps what's just about to happen, or what just happened, or what have you, because sometimes we're really busy running through life and we don't, and it catches us, doesn't it? We go, oh crap, I've been kind of feeling off and on with a floating feeling of something all day, but I haven't really stopped, and then it's come to the end of the day and I feel wiped or something, like we get it like then and there. But I feel like when you're allowing yourself to ask those questions, and not like, you don't have to know everything all the time, every single second before you ask, you kind of let yourself off the hook and say, well, okay, what could be happening? I think that's great. I guess I do the same thing when it comes to if I'm feeling unsettled in any way, and I kind of do my little inventory with the principles, like I'll run through the principles as a am I being honest in the situation? How open-minded am I? Am I judging everybody? What's going on for me right now? Am I a bit resistant? Is the willingness there or not? And I start to go through all 12 principles just to kind of get more intimate relationship with the higher vibrational frequencies that I really want to be operating on, because the principles for me aren't about being perfect. They're certainly not. They are magic. They are magic combination of ingredients, I believe, for a spiritual life, and a healthy physical and emotional life as well, and mental. But also I feel that it's one of those things where often we don't realise things that we start to question, and I think that's what I'm getting from what you're saying. Allow yourself, what just happened, Yeah,
absolutely. And it's just, like you said, you may not know exactly what it is that's putting you off at that moment in time or anything like that. And it is, sometimes it's just life. Like, we have so many things, we're so busy sometimes. Before you get to the end of the week, you've had a list of 1,000 things you wanted to do, and you may not have ticked off any of it. May not have got to any of them. But when you are feeling that way, I just trained myself that when I started to feel anxious, it meant that, okay, I just need to sit, pause and reflect. And then I can sort of work out from there what it is that I need, or, look back and see how I am. And also it's that taking that time to say, that's okay to feel anxious. That's fine. That's my body's warning sign. That's my, body's saying that, I need to do something. So I had to train myself. It did take time, like anything. Creating new beliefs and creating new ideas and things can be tricky to implement. But, when the time started, once I got used to it, I actually started to enjoy it. And I found that the anxiety just didn't pop up as often, because it got to a point that I'd recognize the symptoms straight away and be like, oh, okay, stop, breathe, relax. Yeah, okay. And then sometimes I would know instantly after, a while of doing it. It got to the point where it's like, oh, I just need to relax. I haven't breathed properly, or, I just need to switch what I'm doing to something else, and I'll go back to that later. So, it was a lot of training around that. But when I started to see it from something loving, and when I started to see it as, oh, okay, thanks, anxiety. Yep, cool, got it. Yep, that was great, and then I started to respect it. Whereas, like you said, in the past, it was always, oh my gosh, what's wrong with me? Something's happening, I don't understand. And that would, cause panic attacks and things like that. But basically flipping it over, it was like, wow, it's a bit of a, you know, like a really cool little power to have kind of thing. It's like, yeah.
I think it would be really great. I mean, we've spoken a bit on the principles, but it would be great to go through each one for people who are listening. Then they can actually understand what we mean in intangible form. And maybe we can give them a little example on how that works, like in that relationship with honesty, with anxiety. Like we can actually sort of start to paint a picture for people as to how it really is supportive. Like the 12 principles are really a framework of support in any situation, really. And I do look at them like a spiritual framework. Couldn't do without one single one. Couldn't be consistent in enlightenment without one single one of them. So for me, then they're free. So why not? Why not know about them?
Absolutely.
They were freely given to me, and I'm freely passing them on. They're free. So everybody plug on in to them. But before we do, I just want to mention one thing, and that is that there was a really big difference for me in my heart chakra, and understanding and really having a quite a different relationship with my heart chakra. After I had more recovery around the anxiety and everything like that, and I was just moseying along in my life without any anxiety. When I started doing readings and started picking up on people's emotional realities and not only their emotional realities, but also their life purpose expansion, what would happen for me, or their compassion expansion, what would happen for me is I would start to feel in my heart chakra, I would start to feel something. And I thought, what the hell is going on to my heart? And what I realized was that there was some pain, but it was from growing pains. It was from compassionate expansion. I'm feeling their expansion going on. I'm also feeling my own expansion going on. I'd walk away from situations going, holy crap, like I feel like my heart is like completely outside my body, but in a good way because it's already in my body. And so there was, if you like, an unlocking of heart chakra wisdom, but I had to actually be in my body and be in my heart space and operate on those frequencies of love and unity and forgiveness and all those heart chakra centered principles before that happened. But can you imagine what that has done for unlocking my joy? I mean, in Chinese medicine, they say the heart chakra is your joy chakra, you know, like that's where it lives. And people wonder why I'm so joyful all the time. And it is real. It's not something I put on. I can't fake joy, because if I tried to fake joy, it would remind me of my family of origin, what I did when I was a little kid. And that was just a lie. So that kind of is a good segue to talk about honesty, because me, I mean, I don't know about you, but for me, being dishonest about who I was, what was going on for me, you know, hiding my eating disorder, hiding my fears, and all that stuff, that for me was the antithesis of the honesty principle. Is that I was doing everything to create my anxiety by not being honest. That's for me. I don't know about you, if you can relate.
Absolutely. Like you said, it is, you're not being honest. It was quite scary to talk about people, how you were actually really feeling. So honestly, for me, when I actually sat down and broke it down, I was like, oh, well, you know, it wasn't until I actually accepted that I had anxiety and depression, did I realize that this is something I can work with. Because, you know, I was denying it for so long, and the doctor would say, you know, this is what it is. You know, there's ways you can get around it. There are, you know, people, so many people are experiencing it and that sort of thing. There's help you can get. But until I was actually really honest with myself that, okay, I admit it. Yes. All right. This is what it is. Did I actually feel that little bit of sense of relief? And I'm like, oh, now I kind of know what I'm working with. You know, I'm at the beginning of it, but I can now start to formulate a plan, or I can now, you know, start to work towards working through that. So honesty was like the number one big, you know, tick to go, okay, we're at the beginning of this journey, it's starting, and now you've done the first biggest courageous step, and that's by admitting, yep, this is what it is. So
absolutely. And then when you fast track it to the end of the principles, I know we should be doing that. do that for a second because we're allowed.
Yeah.
And because X principles open-mindedness, so we can do this. Allows us to do this. But, you know, if we look at the last principle, which is peace, and you've come to that point with your anxiety, and then when you relook at honesty, you get the picture of what it's really about, rather than, oh dear, I've got to admit that I've got this, you know, like that. Early beginning, which, you know, was necessary, gets a complete reframe. Well, why honesty is really here. I mean, anxiety is really here in the first place. So it's kind of interesting how that flips itself on its head a bit. The more we go along with the principles, the more enlightened we get, and we just see things so differently. It's just a complete reframe. So open-mindedness. Okay, I'll let you go first. I'll reflect on open-mindedness for me. You go first.
Yeah. Well, I guess open-mindedness was being that you've got to. The thing about anxiety is when you're anxious, you're worried about something that's either happened in the past or it's happened in the future. So open-mindedness to me was looking outside of yourself. Like, you needed to be completely open-minded that you could look at something and look at yourself from a different perspective. So it was about really opening and expanding the mind to see that there are other ways around this, and that this is who you are, this is what you're at the moment. It's not who you're going to be forever. It's just something we're working with. So it was a matter of looking at yourself in that different perspective, and that's how open-mindedness really worked for me. It was about opening to other ideas, opening to other what other people were experiencing and that kind of thing, and finding something that worked for you. That's how it worked for me.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah, because the first thing that jumped out at me about open-mindedness was that when I actually formed a judgment of good or bad or right or wrong, it may well be towards myself too, because I was really, really, really hard on myself. That created a lot of my eating disorder and perfectionism and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, the minute I started to kind of judge, and I believe that was very much crown chakra related. So like when you judge, your crown chakra closes off. It's almost like your emotional body starts to get overloaded because it's disconnected. So I feel like what would happen for me is, there's a combination here. I feel, because I used to feel quite empty. And I feel like that was probably also why I turned to food, because I kind of couldn't fill up the hole in the soul. I was just like, you know, I was always wanting to eat. Like, it was just ridiculous. Like, you know, if I told you stories of what I did, that were just crazy, insane things that I did, because I was like the heroin addict with food. So, you know, I'd eat out of bins. I'd go from shop to shop buying meals. I don't know. I just spend thousands of dollars on food that I didn't even have. You know, it was really like that. And I feel like the judgments of other people and the judgments of myself created this hollowness inside me. So the minute I stepped into the principle of open-mindedness, and I was open to a power greater than myself, I was open to other spiritual sources, I was open to nourishment, I was open to a different point of view, like it was saying, that's when I started to actually feel full and not hungry all the time. But I had to let it begin with me. I had to make that choice to open more, to be more open and fixated with what I thought was right.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I agree.
And willingness, let's move on to willingness.
Yes, willingness. For me, willingness was actually willing to start something to help me get through this. It was like you were willing to be willing to do something about it, you know, like it was getting sick of being in that every day. It just felt like the same thing over and over again. And of course it was the same thoughts, and it was the merry-go-round patterns. It was constantly, and it was always that fear of, you know, if I go out today, if I'm stuck in this situation, am I going to have a panic attack? Am I going to get anxious? How am I going to feel today? So it was really about that, being willing to change, being willing to try new things, and being really open to those ideas.
And it sounds like to me too, like the willingness side of things was about being willing to embrace your anxiety and actually have a conversation with them. Like, was pretty amazing what you shared before about seeing them like this little part of you going and wanting to talk to you about all the things that were bothering them, and you actually decided to talk to them. And I think that that's a really big step, because I think a lot of people, they'll think that anxiety or depression or stress or crisis or breakdowns, they put them in a category and they say, well, that's not good. And I like to say, well, actually, they're brilliant. They're actually cracking you open to be more open than you ever have, to question more than you ever have. They're breakthroughs, not breakdowns. They're opportunities, not crises. They're, it's about willing to take a different turn in your life. Yeah. And some things need to come to a head in order to do that. And some things are debilitating, like anxiety, for a reason. Yeah. I mean, if they didn't help you, bring you to your knees, would you need to get up? It's kind of like that. And that's how I see my anxiety that I had, and also my eating disorder that I had, because they both brought me to my knees. Literally, I'm not joking.
Yes.
For something more. And so let's move to forgiveness, because that's the next principle. Mm-hmm. Have you got some energy around that to share with regards to
forgiveness, that's a huge one. It's like the F word kind of thing, when you're talking to yourself. It's like, oh my gosh. Because anxiety doesn't always just happen overnight. It's one of those things that people have experienced for many years before sometimes they even know that that's what it is, and it plays out very differently in everyone. But so the way I see forgiveness is there's two kind of forgivenesses. There's forgiveness of someone else, but more importantly, there's forgiveness of yourself. And when it comes to anxiety, for me, it's like forgiving myself for the way I may have acted or the way I may have felt in the past, and that's okay. And understanding that that was okay to feel that way, because at the time that was the best and the only way I knew how to feel. So I felt that that's what I really needed to do, and really talk to myself softly, start to nurture myself. And that's when the self-care and all that sort of started to, come up. It's okay, because when I was anxious, I would talk to myself horribly. Like, I would say awful things to myself, like, this is so stupid. Why are you acting this way? This is dumb. You can't feel stupid about driving, or, things like that. You do this all the time. And you would just, this horrible negative self-talk. And, and then, like you said, the judgments and things, you would be judging yourself so harshly. And then I would be so worried about how the other people were judging and perceiving me, adding on to that. So the person I really, really needed to forgive was myself, and that was such an important thing. And that's when I started to sit outside of myself and talk to myself and think, oh, what does anxiety look like for me? And if I was to talk to them, what would they look like? And what part of me is that? And where does it live? And how does it sit? And things like that. So that was like you said, it was a really big turnaround, that point, because that's when you actually start to see yourself in that more loving way, and start to see that, this is something that has brought me to my knees, but for an extremely good reason. So
yeah, I think, for me, the biggest forgiveness component was definitely forgiving myself for lost time, because I felt like with my anxiety and also my eating disorder, I feel like I lost time on, and even traction on my life purpose, because I'd sidestep. And I like to say this to people, we don't go backwards, we sidestep, okay? But I would do a lot, seriously, a shitload of sidestepping, because I would always be 2 steps forward and then about 10 back with my eating disorder. I wasn't that person that got squeaky clean straight away. I was slipping and sliding and slogging and, crazy for a long time. And so for me, it was very much about forgiving myself for lost time. And now I actually reframe it and go, it was perfect timing anyway. But, when I even look at what I'm here to do, I just think, wow, I guess, I'm all about the shortcut now. Like, yes, why choose the hard path when you can go the easy? That for me is an enlightened point of view. Sometimes it takes making some hard decisions to do that, but it is the easier path on us in every way, shape and form if we allow it to be. So for me, forgiveness was around lost time. Unity, obviously unity is a big one when it comes to what we're doing with Enlightened Conversations as well.
Yeah, that was I was saying at the beginning that for me was realizing that I'm not alone, you know, that's that for me. And that was not only are there other people experiencing anxiety and that at the same time, that was a huge help for me, but also not alone in the sense that there is that power that's bigger than me, you know, and then we're here on this spiritual journey and all that sort of stuff. And that was very comforting as well, because it really took you outside of all those little thoughts going crazy in your head and, you know, brought you into a sort of bigger picture perspective. So that, huge help.
I can relate to that because for me, it was probably my first experience ever of peace, real peace that I ever had. People are probably thinking, oh my God, you must have had a really crap upbringing. But, you know, I'd gone into Overeaters Anonymous. I was 20 years old. I was suicidal. I wanted to check out. I didn't want to be here. And I walked into that meeting with people sharing their stories. They were sharing my story. Like they were, every single one of them were like, you could have put my jaw off the floor. I thought, I'm not crazy. I can't be crazy. Can all these people be crazy? Because I'm, you know, I felt not alone. Like that for me was major. But then they told, in the 12 steps, they talk about this concept of a higher power. And I had absolutely no at all, zero interest in connecting to a higher power at all. And yeah, because I came from a Catholic, Greek Orthodox combination, hellfire and brimstone background that was fear-based, that didn't resonate with me whatsoever. So I decided, you know, I don't believe in anything. But when they said, look, even if you don't believe in something, just pretend, like just pretend that something's there. Just see what happens. You just never know. Something might happen. And so I remember I went to work and I was walking to work, and it was kind of like only about sort of 20-minute walk. And I thought, I'm going to walk. And I walked to work and I decided I was just going to pretend that there was something. And I felt something straight away. Wow. As soon as I was willing, as soon as I said, okay, I'm gonna let you, I'm gonna pretend. All right, you're here, and thank you for being here, and can you make me feel safe and comfortable now? And and I was like, somebody had wrapped me up in a blanket of love that whole day, and that was like I could not like argue that. Like I was just like, what is going on? And
that's amazing.
From that moment on, it wasn't a concept; it was a feeling. And so from that moment on, I was able to connect with that unity principle more, even though I hadn't named it, but felt united with that source of comfort. And so major for me, the unity principle. But, you know, also looking at everybody like a mirror and seeing myself in them, no matter how dark or light, also helps me to embrace any aspects of myself that might feel afraid. And to own those and transform those as well. So we'll move on to discipline. We're halfway through.
Yeah.
I liked your article on discipline as well that you wrote for Lightworker Advocate Magazine. I really liked it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, discipline. I remember when I first sat down to write about that, actually, I was like, what am I going to write about this? Because, you know, discipline is one of those words when you're a child and you're growing up, and, you know, discipline was, you know, that's it, you've done the wrong thing and that sort of thing. So I had a little bit of fear around that, just that word, and it used to actually bring me a little bit of anxiety just thinking about it. But when I sat down and really reflected about the principle and how it fitted in, I was like, well, maybe discipline for anxiety and for me was actually putting in those steps to help myself manage my anxiety. So that's, you know, and that's, that's the whole self-love and the whole self-care and the whole self-loving came up, and I thought, well, that really fits for me. And now I can see that word as a really nice word, because now I know, no, what it means is these are my fall-tos, or these are the things that I've used to help me. And, you know, and thanks to anxiety, I actually do care about myself, and I now know it's okay to take time to care about myself. So discipline for me was like that, a thing of getting into a nice routine of, maybe it might have been meditating or just trying to eat something healthy during the day, or something that I could nourish myself with, trying to sleep a bit more, or, you know, not get upset with myself if I needed a nap during the day because I've been, you know, overworked or that sort of thing. And having the ability to say no. As somebody who, a lot of people I know who I've met who have anxiety have a lot of find it hard to say no, and I absolutely am the same. And used to scare the hell out of me to have to say to someone, no, I'm sorry, I can't do that, because I was a constant yes person. But it wasn't saying no because I didn't want to do those things. It was saying no because I needed to look after myself, and I really, if I didn't, I was just going to keep burning out and falling apart. So, and I can't help anyone at that stage. So discipline became so important. It was like, well, I can't help others or be my best self if I'm not feeling my best self, or giving myself the energy and the nourishment and that it needs to feel good.
Yeah, exactly. And I agree. I think discipline for me became a kindness. Like you were saying, it was like not. It was about saying no, but it was more about saying yes to me and yes to what, yes to spirit too. Because often I would feel anxious or panicked when I was operating on my what I thought I should do, like, or what I thought other people thought I should do, rather than what spirit was telling me to do. And so the anxiety would be a cue to actually go, oh, hang on a second, I got to backtrack. What was it that they told me I needed to do in my meditation and I haven't done that yet? Oh, okay, maybe that's what I need to do next. And I had to break it down so that my life was more about the next thing that I was meant to do rather than the whole thing, because I think that created anxiety for me. And for me, it was about, no, it's about the baby steps, because the baby steps are the giant steps. Because every time you make a decision that is on path, and I mean every single time, you are expanding and you are enlightening. And so your decisions become really expansive and enlightening to your highest self-expression, and very much about, it starts to automatically heal stuff when you do that. So different. It was completely reframed for me when it came to looking at that principle. So we'll move on to faith. Faith is one, isn't it, when it comes to anxiety?
Yes. Absolutely. Faith was probably one of the hardest because, you know, as someone with anxiety at the time, it was all about control. And as soon as I wasn't in control of something, it felt that I was out of control, and that's what would lead to the anxiety. So for me, faith was about trusting. It was really about trusting in that higher self. It was about trusting in that, the underlying intuition that was actually trying to come through, and trusting in spirit, trusting that things were going to be okay. And when I'd look back, you know, I used to get anxious about lots of different little things, and I think, well, you know, I survived every one of those. You know, did I, you know, some of them might have been really difficult to get through, some may not have been as bad as I thought, and half the time what you think people are thinking about you is probably not what they're thinking at all. It was about putting faith that it was going to be okay, and that it was okay to not have to be in control. It was okay to hand that control over to spirit if I needed. Like, it was about really trusting in that. And I found the more I started to trust in that, the more at ease I felt, because it was kind of like saying, you know, here's the problem, I'm giving it to you, I don't want it anymore, kind of thing. And then usually it would just fizzle out, or it would work its own way out, or something like that, or at the time the right thing would come up or pop up that you needed. So the more I practiced it, the more I felt, oh, faith actually can work for me. It's just I just need to build that trust.
I can relate because the more I handed over, the more at peace I felt too. It was like it's called like the letting go muscle, right? You know, you do have to exercise it, right? Because you can let go of something that creates an obsession, like, for instance, a person with my recovery from love addiction, or the food. And I'd hand over the food, or I'd hand over the food plan, or I'd hand over the person, and then back they'd come in my head. and then I had to hand them over again, and it became a constant thing of letting go. I even imagined a big pair of God hands that I had to hand over to, and that helped me to like literally hand it over, or literally hand that person over. No, they're safe, and no, you can't. It's not your job to work it out, Shell. And that kind of stuff. So for me, it's definitely a muscle, but my goodness, became so much easier once the muscle was there, because it was like, oh yeah, and then they didn't fly back into my head because I really had let go. Like, I had developed the relationship with the higher power to be enough to be able to go, you know what, I got faith, you got this. I don't have to think about it.
That's right.
Don't want me to think about it because it's creating anxiety, so I'm just not going to actually even entertain it. And that was another part of how I would say I exercise discipline, because the combination of the faith, yes, and the repetition with continuing to hand it over really helped me. And so we're moving on to the 8th principle, which is responsibility.
Yes, responsibility. That I found it kind of went hand in hand with the discipline that we were talking about before. I was feeling I'm responsible to myself, and it, in putting in those steps and things to help me manage it. But the biggest breakthrough I had with responsibility, and I remember it because I remember thinking about responsibility, and this came to me, and I was just like, oh my God, I'm responsible for my anxiety. Holy crap. Like the whole time I'd been thinking, I'd been blaming others, or I'd been blaming situations that I'd been in. I'd blamed things that happened to me. And although a lot of, I had a few things happen to me in my life that weren't nice, but it was how I moved on from those, and it was how I let those thoughts affect me that I created this anxiety in myself. And when I was going through responsibility and worked that out, I remember just breaking into tears, like, oh my gosh, it was like everything sort of opened up and went, wow, this is how it's happened, and this is why it's happened though, because had I kept going and going and going with this, it would just get worse and worse and worse. But the fact that I've kind of hit the nail on the head with myself, it was like, it was like that last hurdle that I needed to kind of jump over. It was like, this is where it came from. And I could go into it for ages, but the short end of it was, I was responsible for what had happened in my head and how it had played out in my body. So that kind of gave me some relief after that, because then I was like, well, if I'm responsible for my thoughts, it means that I can be responsible for changing them. So that was a really big step forward, and it meant that, I really can change them. And yeah, it might take some time, and that's okay. I just need to be gentle, and loving with myself. But when I do so, but yeah, it's possible.
And that ties into love, which is that next principle. And I can relate to you, because from my point of view, it's like when I realized I created all my experiences to actually teach me how to be more of an enlightened being, then nothing is incorrect. Nothing I have done is incorrect. It's all been in perfect order. That for me is the most unconditional love that I can offer to myself, but it's also the most unconditional love that I can offer to the whole globe, because if you can't do it for yourself, it's a bit hard to do it for everybody else. And I think for me, love in taking a bigger picture view of all my responsibilities, all the things that I've created, helps me to really not get into the whole process around disconnecting from when people aren't going well, like how we say, oh, be more compassionate and da da da. It's like, well, yeah, but if you're already feeling like there's something not quite right with the process and the journey, you cannot step into offering that level of compassion to begin with. And so for me, it was a complete reframe, really coupled in with what you just said with responsibility as well, to just see the whole thing as being my own creation for my enlightenment. How awesome is that? I've chosen my anxiety. I've chosen my eating disorder. I've chosen my abusers. I've chosen my inappropriate behavior, all to teach me how to reconnect to my higher self and the higher self of everybody else. wham.
Absolutely. Amazing. It really was. It really was. And with love as well, I found like, because once I guess I realized that I was responsible for this and how I was going to try and help myself out of it with discipline and things, and the whole loving of yourself was so important. And like I said, the forgiving, all the kind of the principles before it all sort of came into this love, and it was about creating that and understanding unconditional love for yourself. And I used to think to myself, well, you know, if someone I really care about, like if it's my partner or my best friend or a child or someone, you know, how would I talk to them if they had anxiety? How would I make them feel, to explain to them, I know how you feel, and, you know, and to really empathize with them. And I would see, well, you know, I would talk to them in the most loving way possible, and I deserve that too. So that was a big part of love for me. It was like, you know, I'm just as important as everyone else and anyone else who's feeling this way. And how can I share with others and help others if I really don't fully understand and believe and love myself? So love was really like good for that.
And so we've got 3 more and about 10 more minutes, but I'm wondering if we can Speedy Gonzalez it, because I would like to I would like to kind of finish up with hearing a bit more about what you're doing. I'll let you finish on these 3. So we've got wholeness, then we've got joy, we've got peace.
Yep. Wholeness for me was about really sitting down and talking with that anxious part of myself. And it was about really accepting that she was a part of me. Yeah, really accepting it, exactly, and accepting that she was a part of me as much as love is, as much as anger is, as much as frustration is, as much as my masculine side, feminine side, all those sort of things. So it was really about feeling complete again, and not so disconnected from those parts of myself, and actually inviting them in to say, all right, let's work together. We want to be the best person we are. You know, at times we experience stuff, but we can work with that together. So it kind of became like anxiety was a bit of a partner sort of thing, a little partner in crime, basically. Like someone's like who would help me out when I needed it.
Yeah, I like the team.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. And sometimes you need to call on those extra team members, like, all right, I need my energy now, or I need happiness now, I need joy now, you know, I need you to come in and help me with this and this and that. So yeah, it was really about respecting the complete part of yourself, the light side and the dark side. So because we all have it, and it's there to help us, basically. So yeah,
the more we retrieve those parts of our soul, the less other people project onto us that aspect of ourselves that we haven't actually integrated too. So our life becomes a lot easier when we do that. So
definitely.
And more joyful. Moving on to joy.
Yes, joy was more like just the fun principle for me, because I was like, well, now I sort of know where I am, where I know where I'm working towards. For me, it was about giving myself permission to feel joy again, because when you're so anxious all the time, it's really hard to feel joy about anything, because you're so scared about what's going to happen, or what might happen later in the future. Like you might be, you know, spending time with someone that you love, but you're not actually physically in that moment because your mind is thinking about something next week that's, you know, or something someone said yesterday, and you're missing those amazing moments. So it was really about giving yourself that permission to feel joy. And for me, it was about implementing something each day that I could to feel it and make sure I actually do invite it in. And so I picked up an old hobby that I used to have, that was photography, and I used to make myself get up really early in the morning and just take pictures of sunrises or sunsets and things like that, because it was something I loved to do, and then share it. So I found that gave me a lot more joy during the day if I set myself that time to actually feel it.
Yeah, and also we talked about the heart chakra being connected to joy, and also our body, and also being more in our body with the anxiety coming back in, like helping us to feel more grounded. And I feel like, wow, isn't it interesting how your hobby connected you more with your heart chakra, because you're in awe of the beauty of and connection all around you with the photography, which we did showcase in our September edition.
Thank you.
And also, I had no idea you had a picture put in the local paper as well of one of your pictures, which is awesome. But, you can really feel, your connection. I think that's really important, that it helped you to feel in the connection, and that brought you that source joy, that source, higher source. And then that really carries through in the images that you capture, like you can really feel it. And the last one is peace. Peace.
Yay! Peace! Woo! It was like kind of like coming to the finish line. It was pretty cool, actually, in the sense. But I found by the time I had started implementing sort of the love and the wholeness, the joy and the peace, sort of that last spectrum of those principles, was I really didn't feel anxious as much anymore. Because, when it came up, I had those quick instances, all right, yep, something's not right, that's cool, I could deal with it. And it really didn't hang around as often. And because I was implementing joy, I was actually bringing myself into those moments. I was bringing myself into the moment. So usually when you're feeling anxious, it's because you're not in the moment, you're outside, you're thinking past or future, kind of tense. So it just, for me, peace was like, it just felt natural. Because I was more at peace, because I wasn't experiencing those thoughts as much anymore. Things didn't bother me as much, and I noticed that I was looking more for the positives and things in life, and actually enjoying those very moments instead of thinking outside of them. So peace just sort of came naturally at the end. It was beautiful.
I kind of go, there's ways you can shortcut to peace, but the natural sort of progression of principles brings peace. And I love what you wrote about in your article in October on peace. I wanted to read this, actually. You said, anxiety helped me to discover my passions, photography and writing, two things I never would have really worked with if I didn't experience anxiety. I'm getting chills as I'm reading that, because obviously we've benefited from your writing, so thank you.
Thank you.
But most of all, I was thankful that it taught me that I could finally be me. I'm finally at peace with being myself. I feel like crying right now because that's so beautiful.
Thank you.
First time in my life, I understand who I am. I had finally found peace with the most important person in my life, me. And I have anxiety to thank for that. It's just beautiful.
Oh, thank you. And that was straight from the heart. And like I said, that's basically that last wall of the heart chakra just tearing open and just filling out. And I didn't even rewrite any part of that article. It was just flowed out like you wouldn't believe. And same thing, in tears as I was writing, like, oh my gosh, and it is such a gift, like it really was. And to be able to look back and go, this journey has been an amazing gift, and now it's a gift that I can share with others and hopefully help them, in ways that might help them find the beauty and the truth in it and that sort of thing. It's just, there's
so much for you to say and so much for you to pass on that it's infinite, and we're just lucky that we've had a little snapshot of that. And where can people find you? And thank you so much for sharing what you have today.
So in Australia they can find me, or anywhere around the world actually. We have the anxietydiaries.com.au. So there's a website there and a Facebook page, and I'm about to start a closed group Facebook page, so that hopefully in the next week that'll be up, so that we can actually, people can talk honestly and privately together. So I think it's about just creating that community and helping one another and sharing each other's tips, because what works for one may not work for others, but sometimes people have some fantastic tips that they use that have shared with me. So I just want to help create that community where people can feel safe, and
I think one of the
they can come.
benefits, I just want to repeat the website address. So it's
www.anxietydiaries.com.au.
Okay, so www.anxietydiaries.com.au. And your name's Amy Young. And if anybody wants to follow up with Amy, if you are experiencing some anxiety and things like that, you can contact her through her website page. Please do that. You can also read her articles in Lightworker Advocate Magazine back editions, because she's done a plethora of articles. It is actually under the Anxiety Diaries in the content section, so you should be able to find it. And that's through our website, Lightworker Reflections reflections.com. So that's www.lightworker, as in, you know, the angelic light worker, reflections as in the reflections in the water.com. So you should be able to find all the information that you need through that. And I just feel very blessed to have met you, Amy. I feel very blessed that you're passing on such profound knowledge to everybody and you're dedicating your life to that. And I'm very excited that for a long time you were trying to fall pregnant, and I remember saying to you, I think it's because you need to be more in your body, and as you're recovering from your anxiety you will. And I'm really excited that that's actually happened now for you, and congratulations that you're
Thank
pregnant.
You. Yeah.
And that's tangible reality, that's evidence informed that being in your body helps, and recovering from anxiety can bring you great gifts, including beautiful, wonderful pregnancies and children.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's been a beautiful journey, and you've been an amazing help, Michelle, over the years, and introducing me to the principles and just opening up myself and that sort of thing. So you've been a fantastic teacher. Thank you.
All right, beautiful people. Well, we'll sign off there. Enjoy this, listening to this and sharing it amongst your friends and family via video and podcast. We'll have those on our websites as well. And we look forward to many more enlightened conversations. Lots of love.
Thank you. Bye.